All right, nice. It's always nice to install things and see things, coming together. Not unlike the rest of this staircase, there's quite a lot going on with this decorative column, from all this beading and inlaid reeding to the rosettes. Very much a combination of work on the machines and by hand. So if you'd like to see how I went about building this column, stick around. So, first step, machine up the material, and then we'll get into the details, the nitty-gritty. With the new docking saw bench not yet set up, I need to cut these pieces to length on the slider. Not a problem, just not something I typically do. Ripping a dead straight edge on the slider is super easy. With the bow away from me, I simply hold the board firmly against the rip chute, or in my case here, the crosscut fence, and walk the slider along while making sure not to let things move. This of course can be made easier with the use of clamps, however with some practice, it's easy to get perfect results without them. Now with a straight edge on the boards, I can rip them to the width that I need. Thankfully these boards have been milled and dried nice and straight, so getting a dead flat face on the jointer is a simple task. The straight edge I ripped on the slider now makes jointing the edge a piece of cake. Finally, I run the boards through the thickness planer to finish them off to the exact dimensions needed. This is the front face. Square these lines across. Uh-oh. I think I've run out of lead. All right, but I think that looks good. For the reeding, I've ground some cutters so I can run the pieces in just 2 passes on the shaper. I'm using a thicker board than what I actually need, but that'll actually make the machining process safer. And doing it this way, I can machine both sides of the boards to get what I need. With that done, I head to the bandsaw to cut the pieces to their rough thickness. If you're wondering what I'm doing here, I'm actually feeling for the grain direction, something that can be a little bit tricky at times with quarter sawn material. One pass though is all that takes to get my final thickness. Now I just need to figure out where I'm going to cut these pieces so they look their best. Right, now for the noisy job, routing out the parts to inlay the reeded sections. I made a basic jig from plywood that's the exact size of the pieces to be inlaid. With the use of a top-bearing bit in the plunge router, I should end up with a nice tight fit. This takes 2 or 3 passes and establishes my outside edge. The piece of ply I'm removing here is just to allow for the different lengths in the top and bottom sections. I find clamping jigs on much less hassle than using double-sided tape. I've tried that and I don't know, maybe it's the kind of tape I've used, but it always seems to be a bit of a pain in the backside. Setting the depth of the router is simple when using a plunge base and the part that I'm going to inlay. With the outside edge routed out, there's still lots of material left in the middle, but I'll remove that with a larger bit. With nothing to stop me from hitting the edges though, I need to be super careful. One slip could wreck the edge and have me doing a bunch of repair work. No doubt with the use of some carefully chosen expletives. Chiseling. A final clean up in the corners with a nice sharp chisel has things ready for the reeded parts. Sand, good to go. Now with the inlaid reeding done, it's on to putting a 45-degree edge on the boards. Here is where the tilting arbor on the shaper comes into its own. Being able to dial in the exact angle makes things super easy. Machining the 45 on the boards this way is made even easier with the use of a power feeder. Not only does it make working on the shaper easier and safer, in this case it holds the board down to the table, ensuring I get a perfect 45 all the way along the edge. For the glue up, all I do is line up the edges and hold them together with masking tape. And now the tricky part is just sort of folding this. Voila. It's important not to starve the joint of glue, and here I use a small brush so that I can get the PVA glue on quickly and bring the joints together before the glue starts to dry. So, simply fold this up, and this up, and then get some masking tape, and basically just doesn't seem like a lot, but you actually get quite a bit of clamping pressure by taping it up in this way. You don't get any clamp marks either. So, alrighty, there we have it. That's going to look pretty nice, this column. I'll might actually stand that up over here. Time to go for a bike ride. Alrighty, well that was a lot of fun to get out for that ride. Now it's time to mark out for the beading and the rosettes. Here I'm just adding some blocks of wood to help keep things nice and solid, as well as make securing the column to the wall easier. Let's just pop these in, glue. You can fix it. Look. Tight. Before I do any of the beading, I'm going to add a 3/8 radius to the exposed corners, stopping short of the top where the crown will be added and the bottom where the column connects to the stair treads and rises. Alright, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 beads on each face to do. So I'm going to get going on that, but I won't bore you wonderful people with that because it's going to take me a little bit of time. If you want to see how I do that, there's another video I did on the newel posts. If you haven't already seen that, you can check that out. So they're all pretty darn close in size. right. Alrighty, so the last part to do with the column, short of the crown around the top, is these rosettes. And I had originally planned to cut these sections out and turn them on the lathe. I sort of got a little bit ahead of myself and just glued it all up and then just went with it. Ideally, I would have just cut this hole with a 2 3/4 inch Forstner bit, but I don't have one and I couldn't get my hands on one, so I've ended up just going with a hole saw, cutting the whole thing out. I'll turn up these rosettes and essentially glue them in there. So it's still going to work. So let's go and do that. And in case you're wondering if for any of the wood turners out there, yeah, this is a spindle gouge. I don't have any sort of gouges specific to turning, or doing faceplate work. I've always used this. For 40 years I've used this, and in fact I made this when I was an apprentice. So that ought to do it. Well, I wouldn't get me videoing your kid's important soccer match. I'm sure I'd miss half the action. I just popped these rosettes in and realized I never actually videoed it. So anywho, it's pretty simple. I literally just glued them in place, made sure the grain was lined up, and that was that. So just put a little bit of filler on this join here. Okay. There we have it. Ready to install. Well, if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around and watching. And if you like this video and would like to see more, please remember to hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.